And we are going to welcome to the stage Harold Goldberg, David Cage, Ellen Page, Kadeem Hardison, and Eric Winter.
All right. Well, that was pretty awesome. I just want to make sure we do all this at the right amount of time. But I'm Harold Goldberg, and man, I can't wait to get this panel party started. It's going to be fun. So I wrote a couple of years ago a narrative history of video games called "All Your Base Are Belong to Us," how 50 years of video games conquered pop culture, and it was a subject of 200 interviews, and I think David is in there as well. And so on the panel, we obviously have some illustrious folks indeed to talk about Beyond Two Souls, and next to me is Ellen Page, who won our hearts as the Take No BS teen in Juno, for which she was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Actress. And we know her from Inception and other fine films, and we'll soon see her with Alexander Skarsgård and Patricia Clarkson in the terrorism drama The East. And then there's David Cage, the story-loving CEO and founder of Quantic Dream. The last game from his studio in Paris was Heavy Rain, dark an awesome, dark, creepy, frightening game about murder and serial killers. And we first met Kadeem Hardison as Dwayne Wayne in A Different World. We've seen him in everything from House to Parenthood, and he's directed and starred in a new film called The Dark Party, and boy, does he love games.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we've seen Eric Winter in everything from The Mentalist to Good Christian Bitches. And I'm so glad you're in there so I could say that, say Good Christian Bitches. We'll see him in Fire with Fire with Bruce Willis and Rosario Dawson very soon. And what intrigued Jeff Gilmore and me when we started to talk about games at the festival is story. We always get together and talk story for a fairly long time, and then we talk games for a while. And last month I wrote a long feature for the New York Times about BioShock Infinite, and I said that certain games, including David's games, are getting far better when it comes to a deep narrative that's also cinematic. And so David, we just saw some very dramatic dialogue and moving scenes that certainly induced empathy from me. And in your Paris office, I think there are signs that speak about the importance of feeling and empathy when playing the game and when working on the game. So how important is it for us to care about Jodie Holmes, Alan's character?
Oh, it's very important. It's the heart of the game. It's really the story of her life. It's a journey in someone's life. And we'll see how when she's, as I said, when she's a kid, at different moments, happy and sad in her life. And yeah, just be with her and share her life. It's very important, I think, to storytelling in games. We saw that with Heavy Rain, because in Heavy Rain, usually the figure that we have in the industry for people starting a game and finishing it is about 20%. So it's only 20% of the people starting a game who see the end of it. But for Heavy Rain, for example, that was really story-driven, this figure was 75%. So because people wanted to see the end, they wanted to know what would happen next, and all this was very important. So storytelling, I think it's something absolutely key in interactivity.
And Ellen, what made you want to play the role of Jodie Holmes? Was part of it the story that you're...
Absolutely. I mean, when it first came as, you know, an opportunity from David and Guillaume and everyone at Quantic Dream, I didn't know how to wrap my head around it. I was like, what does it mean to be in a video game? I had no concept. I hadn't really even played video games in like 10 years. I sort of stopped at like Crash Bandicoot. So, great game. And and then it, you know, completely intrigued me. And then I got Heavy Rain and was just completely blown away. I mean, I had such limited gaming experience in that time that, like, you know, the technology blew me away. And then to see what was happening, this combination of, you know, interactive gameplay with a cinematic scope of narrative, it was fascinating. And then to sit down with David and have him explain to me this female protagonist and this journey that she goes on, I just was completely blown away and just had gratitude for alone creating a character like that. And then to have the opportunity to do that and have an experience like this, which is just like unlike anything I've done, just because of motion capture and shooting a 2,000-page script, etc. It was amazing.
Yeah, and we'll get into it. But it is an awesome kind of independent-minded character.
Absolutely.
You know, we've packed this panel with clips, and the first one we want to show features Ellen singing, and I actually, when I saw it in Paris, I missed it up. I didn't quite shed a tear because, you know, but I missed it up, and it reminded me of back in the day on the Lower East Side when a lot of my friends were sitting on the street singing songs, and everyone thought they would be famous one day, you know, and it just kind of got me. So we have that clip, and if we could just show it, because it shows a bit about the game making technology as well. Ellen with her guitar. So David, you want to talk a little? I hate to talk over it because I really love.
Sorry, I have to talk over it, but first of all, it's my guitar, okay?
Okay.
Let's make that clear.
I want that guitar.
And it's something that was totally incidental, actually, because we were working with Ellen, and I just had my guitar there, and then started singing, and we just asked, hey, wait a minute, I mean, do you think you could do it in motion capture? And Ellen didn't hesitate 1 second. She said, yeah, let's go, let's do it. And it was done pretty much in one take. So that's for the little story. But we see in the background, this is the motion capture set. It's totally empty, as you can see. You see those little markers on the face of Ellen and the fingers and on the body. This is performance capture. We capture the movements of these little shiny balls, and this is how we get the animation. And that song is, whose song is that? Beck. That's a Beck song, that's right, okay.
That's my song.
I want to give you credit on it.
For all y'all.
But it's a touching scene, and you make some very needed money for singing. Can you tell us some more about some of the scenes that you were in that you particularly said, boy, this might be hard to do, or this, you know, I really enjoyed doing this part of it. Without, or can we talk about that without giving anything?
Yeah, I won't give it away.
Yeah.
You know, what was crazy about this? Honestly, it felt like the scope of the story is so huge. As you can, that was the first time I've seen that new trailer, and I was just like, damn, that really does sort of illustrate the scope of, to the extent of situations that Jodie is in and all the things that she goes through. And to be honest, every day it was so emotional and so intense. Like, it's funny to first, like, in LA, you have the scripts, like, you don't really know what you're walking into. And it was absolutely like the most challenging acting job. I mean, because it's just every day you have, you're doing 30 plus pages, and it's nonstop, and a lot of it is really, really emotionally intense and grueling. And so I think, the moments of sort of having to get there and get there quickly and all of that was really challenging, but a great exercise. Like, when would you have that opportunity as an actor to sort of have it just be sort of relentless?
It's kind of great rainbow
like
of
that.
emotions. Yeah. And well, I mean, I think we can move from that into kind of asking what questions the actors had of David during the process. So maybe you can go first, and then we'll go with Kadeem and Eric.
Yeah, I think the most, because the story is, so long, and you have all these different chapters and different environments that she's in, it was often a matter of just sort of, kind of figuring out exactly what moment we were in, what had just happened, and also, your literal physical environment that you're in. But David was amazing because he was so sort of self-effacing about working with actors and things, and I would go in to shoot stuff and be like, oh my God, I have like 2 seconds to like get into this sort of state or emotional state. I remember one time there's a specific time, and he just so got like, had written this character so beautifully and so deeply understood and connected to her that when we would talk about it, I would just be so moved by him. I mean, he was a fantastic director.
And Kadeem?
I'm sorry, I get captivated by her. What was
Exactly. What were some of the questions you had? I mean, I know you, as a gamer, played Heavy Rain, but what were some of the questions you had for David as you were coming on set?
I didn't have many questions. I was beyond thrilled to be invited to play with her and him and Willem. I just wanted to know how long could I play. I just wanted to do more. I wanted to do another character. I wanted to be Jody. I wanted to do as much as I could. And I think my first day might have been a little rough. I might have been a little overwhelmed, and they sent me upstairs to work on my lines. Because I was just so excited.
Sure.
And we'd have to do this thing every morning when we get there to set the cameras and everything. We'd have to stand still, and we'd have to do certain movements. And every morning, without fail, they said, Kadeem, stop smiling. Because I would just be like, this is... But you'd have to have a neutral face, and then you'd have to do certain movements to kind of set the camera so that they would know this is him straight, and then we can put the rest. So my whole thing was just relax. Yeah, I just, yeah.
And Eric?
When I first got the material, I never even was able to get an entire script because of confidentiality reasons and reading everything. So when David and I sat down and met, yeah, a lot of it involved him, because he has it so well in his brain about each character and how deep each character goes, that he was really informative to give us just so much history involving these characters. And then getting there, once I wrapped my head around my own character, yeah, then it was mind-blowing what we walked into. This 20 by 20 square, and the props made of cereal boxes and wood, I mean, everything was, it was like a kid
It's
in the backyard
compact. It
trying
was
to
compact,
play.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, it takes you back to the purest form of acting. It was really wild.
Yeah.
And he walked us through the process like a champ and really guided us, and I felt like we all had a lot of fun together and some good chemistry, so it made it that much easier.
But David, we kind of want to make clear that while this story is very deep, the game aspect is fairly deep as well. And I wondered if you could talk about some of the things you do in the game.
Yeah, I mean, we were not shooting film; we were shooting a game, and it's very different in essence. especially because you need to break down every single scene, every single moment into different possibilities, different branches, different possible actions. So for example, when you shoot a dialogue in a film, you have the dialogue and you record it and that's it. But here we needed to record the fact that Jodie Holmes could say, yeah, of course I want to do this, and then no, no way, and then maybe, I don't know. To all the possibilities that the player will have, we needed to record them. And characters, and Ellen in particular, had to be convincing. Whether she was saying yes, no, and maybe, we wanted her to be consistent with the characterization, with the character, with the moment. And that was a massive challenge for her. And every single action was broken down to different, very small pieces, so the player can really play them and play one of them, a part of them, and make his choices. So it's quite technical as a shooting, but we try to make this quite invisible to actors so they don't notice too much all the technique behind it, otherwise they would get lost in it. And we got lost in it, to be honest.
Well, you know, we have yet another clip, and you know, I think game enthusiasts know a lot about motion capture technology, but not everyone does. But it's a technology that allows for almost filmic facial quality and subtle expression in games. And to do it, everyone, as we've seen, you know, kind of dresses up in black and has dots all over their faces, makes them look a little like aliens. But, so we can roll the clip and you can see a bit about how the actors work together with this technology.
My place, kid. Not very luxurious, but quiet.
She's goddamn amazing.
Hey, watch your language, Walter. She understands everything you say.
She's more than amazing. She's magnificent. Well, I found the bridge about, I don't know, 6 months ago. Walked into Walter. Jimmy showed up. Susie's been here, what, like 3 weeks?
Are you okay?
I'm cold. I'm so fucking cold.
Drugs.
How about you, Jodie? You haven't said much about yourself. How did you end up on the street?
Some things that I'm not proud of. Until I realized I was being used. I know that this is gonna sound really strange, but I'm different.
So what's cool about that was when you were lying there, there were 3 people around you. It reminded me of like the Wizard of Oz and Dorothy a little bit. But I know Kadeem chimed in on this, but it's got to be weird on a first date to have all those things on your face. And I just wonder if you could talk about that. I mean, obviously you guys are total pros, but was it a weird feeling the first time that happened?
Yeah, because, I mean, it's, how many?
90.
90 on the face?
90?
Yeah.
Wow.
And they have to stick each one into your face all around. And, you know, we got to love those people.
You have to love that.
Yeah, right up in your mouth.
Yeah.
Sticking, making sure each one, and sometimes, you know, one will come off and they got to stop the world, search the floor,
Right.
get that one and stick it back in place, and we can go on.
But Ellen, was it distracting at all the first day or so with that stuff on your face?
I mean, at first, yeah, it's because you can't, you can't like physically touch your face, or if something's emotional and you're crying, and then they come on and you have to like sort of break everything up to come and make sure. But other than that, I kind of really got used to it. And when you shoot a movie, you have to do like makeup and hair in the morning.
Right.
And this was kind of nice because you come in, you put on that thing, you put on your little suit, and you're done. And So I definitely, that sort of actually all faded away pretty quickly. But of course, the first day when you've never done motion capture before, it's unusual.
Yeah, yeah. Same with you, Eric.
Yeah, 100%. And like she said, after a while, the dots start to fade away, and you don't. It just becomes part of you. I think wardrobe, or the sense of wardrobe, started to become the most confusing part about it. Like when you put a jacket on, it would just be 2 ropes, and you get caught up in the rope.
Yeah.
Take the jacket off, and your arms like this, and and that's a heavy ski jacket. And you have to realize that that's what we're working with. So
Yeah.
you have to believe all those things that you're doing so that it, translates into what you saw.
But what was really funny was to see that all actors had pretty much the same reaction. On the first day, they were completely lost because the set is empty and they feel they look silly in this motion capture suit and markers all over the place. And they ask, where is the camera? Well, there is no camera. There are camera 360 degrees around you, so you don't need to look at something in particular. Well, what about the lighting? Well, there's no lighting. And what about the marks on the floor? There's no mark on the floor. So on the first day, they're like, what am I doing here, by the way?
Right.
And on the second day, they all had the same reaction, is, wait a minute, that means I'm free. I mean, no one is asking me to look in this direction, to be careful about the light, or to do this or to do that. I can just act with other actors and just focus on my script and my role. So they realize how free they are compared to a film sometimes. I just need also to explain very quickly where we come from before we reach this moment. The technology of games, what we were used to do in the past was to shoot the voice in a sound booth with facial animation, then go on a motion capture stage, and then record the body animation while we were playing the audio to get body movements on the dialogues. But it was 2 different takes. You had to reimagine the body movements based on the dialogues that you were listening. And of course, the problem of that was that the performance was split in 2. You lost all the body expressions, all the subtleties of all the body language was lost in this process. And this is how we did Heavy Rain. And most of the time, it's 1 actor at a time. So that means that if you have a dialogue between 2 actors, you will shoot one first and then the other one. So they don't look at each other, they don't play together, it's 2 separate takes. Here for Beyond, it was a complete change because first of all, we recorded everything at the same time, facial animation, body animation, audio, and we had up to 6 or 7 actors on set at the same time. And it allowed to have performances like this with actors really performing together.
It's got to be far more freeing to do that. We have one more clip, and it shows Ellen at her most down and out in a very dire situation. And as a gamer, as you play, you're kind of on this roller coaster ride with Jodie Holmes, and it does get very dark. And David Foster Wallace wrote a short story about suicide called Oblivion, and I get some of those same feelings here. So let's watch that clip.
Hello?
Nathan?
Jodie, where are you?
They're back. They're all around me.
Good God, Jodie, what's happening?
I'm tired. I'm so tired. I don't think I'm gonna make it.
Tell me where you are. I'll come right now, Jodie. Jodie!
Leave me alone. We've been running for weeks. For what? I have no home, no money, no food. My life is a fucking disaster. I'm tired of running. I gave up.
can't give up!
We got nothing left to eat. Gotta do something about it. You, want to see how things work for you?
Sure.
I mean, I think we could have talked over that, but I really kind of personally wanted to see that again. So, I mean, this is your kind of normal journalist to actor question, but was that a very difficult scene for you? For what we just saw?
Oh, to shoot?
Yeah.
I mean, it's sad. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
I mean, it's sad to. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing how it's funny. Even just watching it, or when we watched the trailer, I felt so because I think, you know, that's what you've seen is just like such a small part of such an, you know, really extensive, intense journey that this girl goes through. So shooting it was extremely emotional, and I felt really like, you know, it might sound cheesy, but connected to her and the things she was going through, and especially in the moment where she's that desperate, and so.
Yeah. And David, you said you told me that there was a moment during the making of this where you felt like a director for the first time. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, it's a moment where it was the end of a very long day with Ellen, and she had a scene where that was really emotional, and she gave a great performance, but I wanted more. And so I asked the crew to leave the set, and we stayed together, and we talked for 20 minutes or 30 minutes together, just sitting on the floor and talking about the character and talking about different things. And at one point, Ellen stood up and she said, "Okay, I'm ready, and let's shoot." And everybody came back and we shot. It was for me, it's one of the best takes of the entire game. And for the first time, I got the feeling that I was useful to something on set, and that I did my job as a director. But, no, working with Ellen has been amazing, and with these chaps. And with them, of course. But Ellen has done an amazing job because she had many of these very emotional and challenging scenes, and we were jumping very quickly from one emotional state to another. And doing this is very challenging, and just been fantastic.
David, can you talk for a minute? We mentioned Willem Dafoe, and can you talk for a minute about his role, and also a bit about some of the gameplay mechanics that you use to control him?
So we don't control Willem Dafoe. Willem Dafoe is a scientist who meets Jodie when she's 8, and he becomes like a second father to her.
Okay.
And they have a very strong relationship that will last 15 years.
But you do control Aiden.
You control Aiden. Actually, in the game, you control Jodie.
Yeah.
And at any point, you can press a button and switch to this entity. And now you control the entity, and you can fly around. You're invisible. You can go through walls. You can interact with matter in different ways. And all the idea is that you need to make these two characters collaborate. And in different scenes, you may want an entity that is very nice to Jodie, or you may decide that the entity should behave differently to her, which will change the story.
And what did you think about this entity as you were filming? I mean, are you generally a fan of horror stories or not? Or
horror?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, not, sort of. It can't be too scary.
Yeah.
Because then I will have bad dreams. I'm a bit of a wuss with stuff like that, which is funny because I make movies, and like I could just be like, "Ellen, there's a boom over that person's head,"
right.
But I'm not very good at that.
Yeah.
What did I think of the entity? I mean, that was one of the, it's one of the fascinating, beautiful parts of the story, and obviously I know in greater detail than anyone else can know about the entity, and it's so I'm going to leave it at that. So it's it's hard to talk about because of that. But as an actor, it's interesting because you're communicating with something that there's scenes. It's okay to say there's scenes where. So there's scenes where she is having long conversations with this thing that you can't see and you can't hear the responses. So I'm just talking into thin air and sort of like in this scene you saw where she tries to kill herself and Aiden's preventing it. And so stuff like that was obviously a challenge. You're sort of working with no response, but sometimes having a full-blown conversation.
And it's interesting because when I played it, one of the interesting things you do to try to control Aiden, the entity, is that you have to move these dots together to use his force to push your enemy away or move through a wall or something like that. And I think it's key for people to know that there are some cool gameplay mechanics involved.
Oh yeah, sometimes when we talk about storytelling in games, people think that it's going to be a long movie and I'm going to press one button every 20 minutes. And that's going to be very boring. And actually, it's not the case. The game is fully interactive. So everything you saw here, and most people who saw it, it's very difficult to understand when you play and when you watch, but actually you play all the time. Everything is pretty much interactive, so that was absolutely essential to us. I would like also to mention the fact that although there is an entity, it's not a horror game or paranormal. It's not really the theme behind the game. It's really about people. And yes, there is this paranormal element, but it's not about that. It's not.
I guess I'm a wuss because I was scared when I was playing there. So we're going to soon open this up to questions from the audience, but first, kind of a serious question, David. The world of video games has always changed, but it's in a kind of interesting changing mode now due to games that are free to play on Facebook and iPad and iPhone games that are fairly inexpensive as well. And knowing that, can you explain why Beyond Two Souls is worth the price of admission as a console game?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. As you said, we live in a world where you can find very cheap games, but I think there are very different experiences. So with Beyond, we try to create an extraordinary experience, in all possible ways. We got extraordinary talents. We try to create something that is really strong, that is visually as appealing as possible. And this is not the kind of experience that you can find on a tablet, on an iPhone. So I think the same way television didn't kill theaters, although most television is free, people still go to theaters to watch films because it's a different experience. I think we will still see the two models working together, console games and free or cheaper games.
So now, folks, if you would like to make your way forward, we will let you ask some questions of this esteemed panel. People are lining up en masse. So are the mics on? Should we start on our right here? Give it a shot.
Is it on? Hello?
It's not on yet.
Check. Hello? Hello?
Let's try the left. Is
it?
that on?
No, here we go.
Okay, yeah, okay.
My question's for Mr. Cage. I'm a video game and film composer. Yes. And I'm just curious on your take on the role of music in games and how that has evolved and how that will continue to evolve, and specifically in your games as well.
We're used to say that sound is 50% of the image. I mean, if you have a good sound, it can make an image even more interesting or appealing or just beautiful. So it's something very, very important. We start working very early on. The more it goes, the more we work with film composers. We worked in the past with a composer called Norman Corbel, who was a Canadian composer. He worked on the music of Heavy Rain. He was an amazing composer. Unfortunately, he died a couple of months ago. It was supposed to work on Beyond, but it was not possible. But yeah, we work with these composers. They are incredibly talented, and they bring an emotional dimension to the experience that is absolutely essential to me.
Thank you. Can't wait to play it.
Thank you.
We go on this side now.
All right, to Mr. Cage. Yeah, I was just going to ask, I mean, looking at all this footage, as Ellen would say, we've clearly gone beyond Crash Bandicoot in terms of experiences. But one of the things I wonder is, does a game like this almost transcend the concept of playing? Like, what would you define playing as in this context?
Well, for me, interacting is about making choices and seeing their consequences. So I'm all against the tendency in our industry to define interacting by shooting. If you don't shoot at someone, if you don't destroy something, then it's not a game and you don't interact. I totally disagree with that. I mean, I thought that in some scenes in Heavy Rain where you were just turning on or off the light in the house where your kid was, it was interacting, and it had consequences, and it was a part of the experience. So I don't know if we transcend the concept of interactivity, but definitely we want to give it a different meaning. You don't need a gun to interact. That's my belief.
Let's do one more on the left.
Good evening. My question is for the actors. I'd like to know how your preparation for the roles in Beyond were different than from other acting jobs you've had.
I would say the most challenging thing is just the amount of memorization you have to do because of the amount of, and typically I don't have that much of an issue with it, but on this, on a film, like on the movie I'm shooting right now, it's like a big movie, so you shoot like a page or less a day, and then on maybe like a movie like The East, you shoot more like 4 or 5 pages a day. On this, we would do 30 to 40 pages a day. But also, the scenes that you're doing aren't a fully cohesive narrative because there's so many different options and responses, and so no matter what the emotional intensity of what you're doing is, in the scene, you're not shooting those things separately, so it's like you say something, beat, the other thing, be the other thing, and sort of that pivoting, first of all, remembering everything, and then pivoting with all of that kind of emotion and direction is really challenging, but such an amazing opportunity as an actor to have that exercise, because when would you ever get the opportunity for something like that? But the fact that it's just like, a non-stop on a set, you wait for the camera to turn around, you change locations, all of these things. And this, you're in that space and you just go.
Yeah, she had the hardest job by far. My preparation was, I know my scene, I come, and it was almost just like a film. But I could feel for her because she had to flip it. She had to say yes one time and then no the next time and then maybe the next time and then the next scene. Yes one time and then no. And I was like, wow, baby. You got it bad. But for us, since we weren't the playable characters, it was, we were supportive. We were the more support team. So I came to work. I did my part. I made sure I was there for her emotionally every time, and him and Willem, and then that was it, and I got to go home.
Thank you.
And Eric, too. Speak for Eric.
Can we go over here?
I thought that last clip was great. I thought that was a great scene. My question is just as a storyteller, though, if I remember correctly, in the clip, when we're watching it during the movie, there was an option whether you jumped or not. Is there a concern as a storyteller that you would be missing these like mini climaxes if somebody was a wuss and decided not to jump?
Yeah, that's always the difficult decision you have to make as a writer. You write these little moments, you make them interactive, which means that the player can see them or miss them. And you want to make sure that no matter what path the player chooses, it got a consistent experience, an emotional experience that says what you want the scene to say. And yeah, sometimes it's a pity to say, oh, you know what, some players will miss this part. But at the same time, you're so happy for the people who will see it that you say it's even better that way. Yeah. It's a privilege. It's the people who made the right choices will get the best parts.
And
play it over.
One more. We only have time, unfortunately, for one more question, so we'll go here.
My question is for Ellen. There were two things that struck me about your performance. One was the extreme sort of physical nature of it, the amount of physicality involved, and the other was the little singing portion. My question is, how did you prepare for the physical aspect, and is singing something that you want to do more of in film?
That's actually a really, really good question, because one thing that's really important to know is, other than like the acting and like the very performance-based stuff, there are other really incredible people who did so much of the work. So all the fighting and the physical things that didn't involve me, because this is, you know, they shot, how long did you shoot motion capture for?
12 months.
Right. So other than like, you know, the acting and that sort of interactive level of it, all the physical stuff was by, you know, incredible stunt people that did amazing, amazing things. Not to say I don't do any of it, but I wish I could do more. That would be really, really fun. I really like that kind of thing, whether it's in a film or whatever. But, and then wait, what was the singing question? No, I'm not, you know, that's about the extent of my guitar skills. I'm really not good at the guitar. And, pardon? I did sing in Juno. It's a 2-chord song. It's pretty easy. So, I mean, I wish I was a talented musician, but I just do it kind of for myself.
Well, thanks to everyone. Thanks to the panel. I really appreciate it. Thanks very much to the audience and everyone who's watched on the internet. And I wish really we had another hour to talk, but we can't. So I hope you got at least a little bit of knowledge about Beyond Two Souls. And thanks so much for letting me speak about it.